Hello and welcome to Jank It Up Fuzzball, episode 13, lucky number 13. I'm your host, Brian, a.k.a. Jank Opress, because I've been playing Savage, and that seems like a good one. Very special episode. It's been a while. I apologize for that. April was just busy with all kinds of reasons, but we're happy to be back. I say we because I am back, and for the first time in the history of the podcast, I have a guest. It's a very special guest. It is someone that you're probably familiar with if you're listening to the podcast at all. You certainly get my side of the story. But he is the mythological snuffleupagus to my big bird, Greg. Greg, hello.
Hello.
So I'm super excited. I'm happy to have new guests. And Greg is actually in person in my house. We're recording with two mics on a table. We've got a couple of beers. We're eager to talk about Destiny. And Greg, thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. And so we actually played quite a few games this past weekend, almost 4 hours of Destiny. Which was
probably too much.
Probably too much. Not for me. I was super excited. It's been about 3 weeks since we played. And since Convergence dropped, we played once. And you were kind enough to come over early and play against my son. Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. And then I played, I think, Kylo Savage against your Vader build. But then it's been kind of like 3 weeks. And we're trying to work through things. And have you bought any Convergence at all? Well, have you cracked any Convergence packs?
I have not cracked any Convergence packs.
Right.
No.
So
just starter sets.
Right. So I played in the box tourneys. So I have a whole box worth of packs, but you have 2 copies of each starter, right?
Correct.
And you also just received your Allies of Necessity.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So I don't have any of the Obi-Wan starters, and I don't have any of the Allies of Necessity, but I do have 2 Grievous, just like you. And we saw those in action. So we played this past weekend, and listeners know that we have a box between us. We have a Convergence box, and we're going to open that hopefully very, very soon, and we'll draft through it, which is one of my favorite things to do, kind of crack some packs and play through those cards. So hopefully we'll do that soon. So I have some questions. Before we get into that, though, just so people get a sense of who you are in terms of Star Wars. I've never had a guest on, so I'm like, what do I do? I should ask some questions. So I have some questions to get to know Greg, not really about his day-to-day existence, but just about his interest in Star Wars, because I know you're a fan, and also your interest in Destiny. I don't want to ask how you got into Destiny, because I know that story, because it was because of me, because one day I invited you over, and we have a history of playing Magic together, which was fun. But then I said, hey, let's play this game, because I bought it to play with my son. And apparently you liked it, because then you got into it. And ever since then, you've been kicking my butt pretty regularly. So it's been great. So here are my questions. I have some I don't want to say quick fire or shotgun questions, because iRebel has that on lockdown. So here's my question. The first 3 are simply thumbs up or thumbs down. So you don't have to give an explanation. Okay. Just tell me thumbs up or thumbs down. You ready? Ewoks.
Thumbs up.
The Phantom Menace.
Thumbs up.
The Last Jedi.
Oh, thumbs down, sadly.
Oh,
I want a thumbs middle.
There's no thumbs middle.
Yeah,
so you have to
thumbs
go.
Down. Thumbs down.
Yeah, I kind of loaded those because I kind of had an idea of where those would go. Okay. So the next 2 questions are either or. So I'm going to give you 2 options. You tell me which one is your preference. A New Hope Luke.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Or The Last Jedi Luke.
This is not going to go the way you think.
I'd have to go in New Hope Luke.
Yeah, I figured. Uncle Owen. Yeah. All right. Okay, next thing. C-3PO or 000?
I'm still going to know 000, but I'm gonna go with 000 still.
So even though you just met 000, relatively speaking, you're going with that over the far more familiar C-3PO. You know what? Me too. Not that these aren't my questions, but I would also go with the assassin. He's not an assassination droid, but a torture droid for sure.
Mm-hmm. He had me electrocuting Luke on a card graphic. So
I know, right? He's great. A couple of other questions, Destiny related. 2 questions, Destiny related. What is your favorite Destiny character to play or to build around? If you have one.
This is definitely going to be edited, because I'm going to have to think about this. We're going to have to have
No, we got all the time in the world.
Yeah. So, man, wow. I mean, I bounced around so much. I've tried a few different things, but I think one of my favorites that I never would have thought it would be my favorite is Boba Fett. Every time I play him, I enjoy him, and every time I use the special against you, I enjoy that as well.
Yeah, I bet. And especially when I have the Shadowcaster out there.
Yeah. So I think I'd have to say Boba. It's a simple answer, but he's not complicated. But anytime I see anyone that's numerically pairs up with him really well, I'm on it.
I think that's a good answer, only because I didn't get into Star Wars Destiny until really Legacies, and you didn't get in until probably the end of Legacies or right before, way before us. And those 2 starter sets, the Boba and the Luke, you still find value out of those. And I think I just forget about them sometimes. Like I've forgotten, like what can you do with Boba? And yet you put together Boba and Bo-Katan, not Bo-Katan. Ketsu, thank you. Yes. And then you've also used Luke, Farm Boy Luke
And I will strongly argue that Farm Boy Luke is fantastic. He's well worth it.
Yeah, I tried with Kira, and it didn't work out for me. But that's a good answer. I like that answer. My last question, also Destiny related. What's the most annoying card to see across the table from you? Either it's a character
Easy
or
pickings.
Didn't have to think about that one very long. Yeah, that's an annoying card.
Any yellow hero deck you play, when I see you reacting to a dice roll or a dice turn, I cringe because I see it, and I'll see it as you're playing it. I see the two dice with the same value, same symbol, and I cry silently.
Yeah. I guess I have tells. Obviously, I guess
it's a brutal removal.
I get too excited. It's a great card. I love it. It. Yeah. That's okay. Well, that. Thank you, Greg. That gives you an insight into Greg a little bit. I'm hoping that Greg will have a good time tonight, and he'll want to come back, and we can ask him more questions about Star Wars, because he and I disagree quite a bit on a few Star Wars elements, which is fun, keeps it interesting. And so maybe we'll get into that. But this, by and large, is a Destiny podcast, casual Destiny, casual competitive, as I like to refer to it. And I thought tonight, since we haven't fully gotten into Convergence together, and yet we started playing some Convergence cards, we'd go over some of the matches we had this past weekend, and your deck. I want to kind of lead into or start with that one, because I knew that you were serious with Destiny when you showed up with your Aphra deck. And I only say this because that came out of nowhere. Like you kept that a secret. There was no, do you have any copies of this or nothing? So you went out and bought Elite Legendary character and all the supports for that deck, more or less, right? And then you showed up with Elite Aphra, Double Executioner, and kicked my tail. Right? Mm-hmm. And that was exciting for me only because I'd never played against Aphra, and I've heard these things about Aphra. So here you showed up with this really rough deck, and I had a hard time with it, but I appreciated it, and I really valued it. And to give a little more insight into Greg, as a Magic player, I found that you are always into synergy, and you're into tribal, which is why I think you'll love Convergence. But and so the fact that Aphra and her droids and everything that happens when they work together, I'm not surprised you gravitated towards that deck at all. And I'm excited you played with it. But this past weekend, with the introduction of Grievous, the starter deck, you've changed. You've dropped the two Executioners, and you brought in Elite Grievous and Commando Droid, and then single die Aphra. So I was wondering if you could just talk me through what maybe you took out and what value you saw and added those new characters and changes to the deck.
Sure. So the best part about building that first Aphra deck was that I loved a lot of the supporting characters, and I'd always wanted Executioners since I'd seen them, and I saw a lot of potential in them. So it was clear and easy choice for me to go for that build. And then, of course, the synergy and on top of it. So when I decided to look, you were the one who told me so much about how much I'm going to love all the droids that are coming. And so I started looking into it, and I did think you were exaggerating. And then I found out you were not exaggerating. Nope. The Convergence droids are amazing, and it's not even hard to find a few good droids to put into this deck. There are so many droids. And so, but it really changed the meta of the deck too. So I went from being almost like a extremely synergetic casting type deck where you're just trying to deal damage to yourself and just deal indirect damage all over the place, to supports, just straight up supports. Because I didn't have necessarily that many supports in the first version. And so when I was looking at how to replace it, I realized, first of all, the first thing I realized was that despite me getting used to a new build, it was going to be easier to play because it was more get supports out, roll supports. And I didn't have to worry as much about the order I was doing things or saving resources for cards that did active cruelty, worrying about getting enough damage across your 3 or 4 white deck to use Crackdown or inactive cruelty. And now it's just rolling as many small droid dice as possible. And I think it also kept you on your toes too with your choices of, do I go after Aphra or Grievous? You're switching back and forth, worrying about which one to go for. And I think the dice choice was interesting also, because I was really, my first instinct, of course, was 2 dice Aphra and then 1 dice Grievous. And then I just realized in a small way, I don't really like Aphra's dice because I feel like I'm always rolling the paid 2 range side with no money and, or, double discard. And that's not always what I want to see. So I went for double Grievous. And over Executioners, it's fun because now I don't have 2 blanks on 2 Executioners.
Right.
I don't have paid sides on Executioners.
Yep.
And I lose their amazing ability to roll out, which, let's be honest, I forgot about 10 to 25% of the time to do.
Right. That was my advantage. Yeah.
Yes. So I would kill off a character of Brian's and then forget to roll out Executioner again.
I was usually so far behind at this point where I wouldn't just, as a gentleman, just remind him of that because it wasn't in my best interest at that point.
Usually by the second or third time I did it, he would maybe pause and say, hold on.
Yeah.
Just the first game every night. And so, yeah, the choices for the characters, that is the most exciting part of the deck for me, are the new characters. And I love watching them roll out. And it's definitely a deck that you and I enjoy frothy beverages while we play.
Yeah.
And it's a deck where I feel like I can enjoy my frothy beverages and not stress as much as before.
I think so. I think it's also, it's the slowest deck. Those are slow matches because there's just so many things that come out and there's more actions in a round. And I agree with everything you said. I think this version is a little bit less, there's less to think about. I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just a little more.
No, I 100% agree.
Yeah, it's more direct to play. And yeah, I didn't feel like there was this onslaught of indirect damage, but at the same time, there's just more dice. And with Grievous, he has the 2 focus, which is annoying. And yeah, it was just difficult to handle that aspect of it. I agree with your characters. You don't have a Sentinel Messenger yet because he doesn't come in the center. But how do you maybe you've heard, I don't know how much Destiny, but he would take the place of Commando Droid if you wanted to add blue, and then you would get his ability, which allows you to basically look at the top card of your deck and play it if you choose after you activate him. So knowing that, are you chomping at the bit to put him in and replace the Commando Droid?
I'm interested, but I'm not. I wouldn't say chomping at the bit.
Okay.
So because what you just said, this deck is a lot easier to play, and then versus going rainbow and having to really put in and swap out cards. I definitely want to stick with this deck for a while and tweak it a little bit more. I think I don't need 2 copies of Roger, for example,
right?
And just play around a little bit with some of the some of the removal, and I think maybe even take out 1 support. Do I need 13 supports? I mean, I love them.
Sure.
Yeah. You would say yes, of course. Yeah. You would say only 13. That's all you ended up with.
Well, I was impressed with the Commando Droid's ability to, after you activate him, you can activate either a support or a droid support or a droid character. Right? We determined that. And then you had these wonderful plays where you had Archangel out, and then of course you had usually Trip 0 or BT1, and so you'd activate the Commando Droid and then activate Archangel and then activate. So all of a sudden you would chain these together.
Well, we decided I probably shouldn't do that because it's probably droid character support, and Archangel is not.
That's true. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
So I did it once, and then we stopped.
Yeah, that's right.
But you're right on the chaining because what I did have a lot of supports out, and I would use Archangel to activate a couple of droids, and then use Commando Droid and activate a droid.
The other one. Yeah.
So in 2 turns, I had 5 dice out, and that was a lot of fun. On top of 3 other character dice. So that was, my dice pool was just monstrous.
Yes. It was.
and I didn't leave a lot of dice on the table. That's the other thing I was going to say is that, Executioner, it was always it felt like almost every other turn, 50% of the time, you leave a die on the table, right? Mm-hmm. With Executioner. You reroll, and then you're like, no, I'm not going to toss reroll this 1 die to get a 1 1/3 chance of rolling a blank. And so, I would let it rot. But this deck with Grievous focus and everything else, I felt like I really didn't let anything rot ever. It was very rare, and it's fun swapping out the battlefield because I think if I kept the old one, even with the Theed nerf, it would have been fine because I would have always had a die out and I would have used it with Executioner, taken an Executioner die out and used the power action, even though I didn't have a neutral character, but I would have used it for the resource, right?
Yep.
But of course, with this deck, no neutral and a lot less blank sides. It made sense to switch out the battlefield.
And you used General Grievous as a layer, right, from the starter?
No. I busted out a Legacy's, the Petronaki. I'm not sure how to say it. Petranaki Arena, the one on
that's right.
Genosis, which is deal 1 indirect damage to yourself to deal 1 unblockable damage to a character.
That's right. Yep.
And Brian was not happy when he saw this. No. I think you first thought also, why haven't you been running this all along in this deck?
I think I did. Because one thing that deck, obviously most Aphra decks do is try to deal indirect damage to themselves. And it's rough. That's what's also super annoying with Aphra's ability is you draw cards, right? So you mentioned how you didn't leave any dice out there, but you always had cards if you wanted to re-roll. It was always there. And it just seemed like every round would always go longer than I wanted it to because you always had cards where at the worst case, you're like, well, I'm just going to pitch this and re-roll these 2 dice. And I was like, man, even I happened to be playing Maul Savage, and even if I wanted to try to discard it, it just wasn't worth it because you always had this resource to get cards back. And that was also really frustrating.
I mean, there was definitely one round where you claimed, and it looked like I was doing to do 1 more action, and then I did 5 or 6 more actions.
Yeah, that was a mistake on my part.
Yeah, watch me playing Solitaire Destiny.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. And you, so we played 3 matches of your Aphra versus my Maul Savage. You won all 3. I felt all 3 were relatively close.
Yeah,
I think I always target Aphra just because I don't like her shenanigans, but maybe I should have targeted. I think the one time I target Grievous first, you managed to pull the damage off of him and reassign
That's
it somewhere
exactly
else.
What I did, yeah.
And then, I don't know if it was the last game or the second game, but the only reason Grievous survived is you had 2 modular frames.
Yeah, and I played that second modular frame and
I cried.
You cried.
Because I couldn't do it. I had enough to kill normal Grievous, but you had 2 extra health thanks to 2 modular frames, and that was and then I think we ended a round, and then the next action, you're like, I activate BT1, and I was dead.
That's one of my favorite ways is the BT1 2 indirect damage kill. The modular frame was a card that I obviously came in the starter set, and I thought this is cool, and little did I know it was going to be like pretty much almost like the MVP of the night. It saved me.
Do you have any other upgrades?
No, that deck's just 2 modular frames. Of course, that's not that different from the first version where I had 1 upgrade in the entire deck. So now I have.
Yeah, now you have 2.
Now I have 2.
It was a lot of fun to play against. I like seeing the new build. I also showed up with a Grievous deck, but it's not an Aphra deck, so it's a little different. I'm kind of glad we didn't play them against each other because those would have been super long, kind of drawn.
I mean, we're going to.
Yeah, I know that won't happen. But I was happy. I wanted to play Maul Savage because you've been asking for me to play Maul Savage, and I was happy to play it, and I came close. I came close. But what's interesting, you mentioned Theed and how you switched off of Theed, and I think originally we were all playing Theed, obviously, before the nerf. And so I still had Theed in this as of like the day of, I guess, last weekend. But then I only have 4 die, and I felt I would never want to remove a die to get that resource, right? So I was worried that I'd be wasting 1 die try to get $1 to do something with. And so then I switched and I went with Bendu's Lair just because it gives me an opportunity to focus. It gives me shields. It gives me damage. And I think it worked in my benefit. I think.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
Okay, go ahead. How'd I roll with Bendu's Lair, Greg? How'd I do?
He never rolled anything poor with Bendu's Lair. I mean, it was so frustrating. I think I only got it 1 time ever.
You did 1 time.
I got it 1 time, and I don't think I even got to roll it out potentially, or something happened.
I think you rolled it out, and you actually rolled trash.
And of course, and you rolled. I mean, damage every time.
A lot of 2 indirect, yeah.
And then when it wasn't damage, it was focus, which allowed you to turn a Maul or Savage die to something horrible.
Yeah, it was great.
It was. I knew of this battlefield, but I learned about it.
Right, yeah. You're like, what exactly does that do? And I don't know if it's the best battlefield for this, obviously, but as a game time decision, it certainly paid off. And like I said, those games were close, and I don't think they would have been nearly as close if I didn't have that from Bendu's Lair, because I was obviously claiming more often than you were with your slow deck, and so it was always giving me an opportunity to roll out. It was fun. We had some fun misplays. As you do when you haven't played in a while. Like I remember rolling Maul out first, and then you like remove a die, and I have nothing to capitalize on. So I was like, that was stupid.
Yeah, but you didn't do that mistake. You didn't make that mistake again.
I didn't.
You were super cautious.
Yeah, and another one that I did. So I tried a hidden motive Trip Zero's die, which I've done months ago, and yet I still did it again, and you can't, right? Because I tried to blank his die, and you can't because there is no blank. So that was and I didn't do that mistake again either. So I learned from that. But man. Trip Zero is an annoying card.
So I'll give him credit. That was one of my best die that night. I mean, he was rolling damage all the time. I wasn't really. Yeah, that was. And on this new deck, obviously, I can with Grievous, I can re-roll my droid dice, and I actually wasn't using that power action that much because my droid dice were rolling really well a lot. So I was not using the power action, but that. I mean, I love that power action. I mean, it really changes the way you play your cards. It made me more aggressive on playing every card in my hand because I'm like, I still have that power action in my back pocket.
Right. You know? Yeah. So it's, one day I think we should have the 2 Grievous decks go out. And my Grievous deck I mentioned that I have built right now, which I've talked about. And for those that care, I wrote an article that just had the 4 decks I have built right now. So it's just kind of what's in my deck box, so to speak. And they've changed. Even this Maul Savage deck has changed. But I have an Elite Grievous, Super Battle Droid, and Sentinel Messenger deck that my son's having a good time whooping me up with. But it's fun. It runs AR as well. And so he's able to get out some big things. So I played that deck. We did change up. After those three matches, we changed up because they actually took a while, right? And so I'm like, well, maybe we can get a few more matches in. We managed to get 5 more matches in because we stayed pretty late, but that was good. You switched to your Darth Vader deck, which tell us about your pairing for the Terror to Behold.
So I'm still running the Jawa Scavenger.
Right.
I'm looking forward to probably putting First Order Stormtrooper in there, or I guess finding a Greedo, huh?
Yeah, I guess
still legit. It's Legacies, right?
Right, and. We did, thanks to Greg, we each bought a $25 box of Legacies. Mm-hmm. And so one day we're going to have this massive sealed box tournament. So hopefully, because I don't have a Greedo, you don't have a Greedo, but hopefully in these 2 boxes there's a Greedo.
Yeah, and it went better than the last time I played this deck. Definitely. I've got a feel for it better, and I swapped out some of the cards. I think the last time I played it, I was hurting for money all the time. And this time I did a lot better with my money. Mm-hmm. And I stuck with Theed for it too, because I'm like
neutral character. You have to.
Yeah. And the Jawa is there to not use his dice. Although funny enough, I was actually rolling pretty well with his dice. Yeah. I think I rolled the 2 range side at least two times. If not 3.
He popped me a couple of times.
And so I just kind of felt like I was like, well, I'm going to lose on this resource, and I'm going to spend a resource, but I'm going to take that 2 damage.
Right.
So
you had Retribution.
Yeah, and it never fired off, I think, once, or maybe one time ever.
I was super sensitive to not remove.
Which, hey, that was great for me. Between Vader's power action and Retribution, you were...
Yeah, I was doing my best to turn. We both got a taste of Vader at the Solidarity Tournament, right? So, and now that you're playing Vader, I'm more aware of what I need to do. So you switched to Vader. I switched to the Grievous. We played 2 matches of that. You won the first one. So you would win the first 4 matches of the night. I was still having a great time, right? A lot of fun. I don't even know the details, but I somehow managed to win the next match. So I guess I just attacked.
I think I scooped.
I think maybe.
It went really poorly.
Yeah,
and I just was like, we're it's getting late and this is over.
Right. And then we played 3 more. So after that, I transitioned back to, we thought it'd be fun to play Maul Savage versus Vader. And it was, because we had one magical game where you Fear and Dead Man me for, I don't know if it was a 3 or your 4 die, I forget which side, but you still slapped me hard with Fear and Dead Man, and then later in the same game I countered back with a Fear and Dead Man of my own. So it was kind of fun to just kind of throw all this damage around. I won the first match. I don't exactly remember how. You won the second match, and then I came back and won the third match. So I finished strong. I won 3 matches on the night out of 5, but after losing the first 4, I felt pretty good winning 3 of the last 4. So that was pretty good. Vader is a scary, scary person because his like you said, when we rolled out, you're like, well, I'm going to win, and especially against Grievous. I'm like, and sure enough, he did.
that was probably the only bragging that I do. I don't often. I am, I think, a modest Destiny player, but every time we rolled out, I would tell Brian, I've got this.
Yeah, and it's true. And so we'd be on Theed, and it was crazy. Are there any new cards in that deck? Any? I guess they're not really. I mean, you didn't put anything from. Certainly not from Convergence.
Certainly not from Convergence. No, but I definitely changed it up, and I can see where I still need improvement. I took out. Do I really need 2 chain sickles? I took out 1.
Right.
I got my dagger mortise in. I think the mistake I made in worrying about money is that I have too much between Theed and Respite and 2 resourcefuls. It's too much. It's too, and then of course potentially the Jawa just rolling well. I don't need all these different methods to take away the Jawa's die.
Right.
So that's where I made a mistake because I was just throwing those cards away, and they were taking up room where I could have had removal. So I would take at least one out, maybe two even, because I don't really need that many if I were to stick with Theed.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, there's some interesting battlefields and battlegrounds, and Convergence, Salt Flats, and some other things which are interesting. So who knows? I'm just excited that you have Vader, and it's cool to have a the Vader character of Star Wars in our kind of very, very personal meta that we have.
You're right. I mean, there was a game where I thought, I think I did still lose, but it was definitely I thought I was going to lose that round.
Right.
And Vader rolls out, and he rolls out like a 3 damage and 2 shields, and you had no way to counter it.
No. Yeah.
And I think I might have finished off Maul or Savage and lived to fight another day with the 2 shields.
I think I was trying to think back. I don't think, because if you kill Maul first, then I have to activate Savage. And I don't know if that happened at all. I don't think it's Aphra did. So I think because of maybe just for whatever reason when you had a chance to target, or maybe I just put the indirect damage on
That's
Savage.
what it was, yes.
I just kept throwing on Savage, which maybe not have been the smartest thing. But it happened, and I enjoy Maul Savage a lot. I like the idea of just the sticks. Originally I had 4 Convergence cards in here. One's the reprint Isolation. I could put another one in there. I don't have any Forsaken, so I know that's a hot blue removal card. I don't have any of those. But I had Pop's Lightsaber, so I put that in because it's a 2-cost stick. And then I had a Tale of Tragedy, which it was a fun card. It was very useful, actually, but it's a 1-cost event and a spot a Sith to turn another character's character dice to the sides of your choice. So Maul now being a Sith, right? That was part of the updates. I remember doing it to Grievous once. You rolled Grievous out, and I blanked both of his die. I remember doing it to Vader once.
Yep.
Where you rolled Vader out.
And the Vader one was painful because it was an amazing roll.
Yeah. So it was really great to be able to blank both his die, because that's what you want to do with Vader. You don't want to remove his die, really, because then, there's a chance you're just going to roll it back in. So that was cool. I had 4 Storm in one build, but this deck just is painful trying to get money. And the only way I would get 4 Storm out is I would have to have an upgrade and then overwrite. And I just couldn't. I have too many 3-cost upgrades in here, as it were. I noticed on the last match we played, though, at least a couple of times I got out Maul's Lightsaber. And Maul's Lightsaber, which I mentioned before, is something you gave me, which is super cool of you. And it was nice to be able to get it on the table against you. And that's a scary dice.
That's what I want to see. And yes, you were rolling like a champ. We both agreed with that. Every time you played that deck, it was just melee across the board. And it was you. And then when you were on the defense, you were countering like a champ. Think about it. I don't think I ever resolved 7 or 8 damage combination with Vader the whole night.
I had to avoid that. Yeah, absolutely.
You did it every time. I think I might have done a 5 once.
Yeah.
That might have been the highest I gotten.
Yeah,
and that was pretty good. Especially, even though I did worse last time I played this deck, I did resolve some 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah, you swing hard, and it is scary. So you have to. That's the thing. I want Maul Savage to work because it's fun, but I need to find. I need those Forsakens. I need some cheaper removal because I need to save my money for upgrades because I just want to get bigger and bigger weapons.
Yeah, and you said that you were winning matches without upgrades, which I think is amazing.
That is true. Yeah, because just if you can get there, so you got 4 dice that are heavy on sticks, and if you can just get those to either reroll into that, the 4 character dice, if they're not removed, they can do a lot of damage.
There was at least one match where you had just 1 upgrade, right. And it came in later. And you still you destroyed me. So I think that's impressive. But you were spending your money,
right? I think what I learned is that if I can roll out these 2 characters and I can get a 3 for one side, and I have Fear and Deadman, that's the best budget for those $2 for that turn. Is just go ahead, assuming there's more than one character out there, right? But just go ahead and turn that 1 die side into 6 or 9 damage.
So it's worth mentioning here that I've had Fear and Deadman in decks.
Yep.
And I've never played it. And every time I
managed to discard it somehow.
Brian has discarded somehow. There are other times where I went to go play it, but then right then I realized I could just finish off one of Brian's characters, and then I'd be left with one, so there'd be no point in playing it and spending the money. All these times it's happened, and then he got to use it before me.
I did, yeah.
And he got to use it probably 3 or 4 times that night.
I did. Greg, I used it so much that 2 days ago I ordered a second copy.
Yeah.
So
it lost its novelty quickly for me.
Yeah. Right. I think it's an awesome card, especially in this deck, because exactly what you said. The character dice do all the damage, and so, yeah.
Yeah, you did it. You did a 3 damage against my Aphra Grievous deck. That was 9 damage.
Right. It was awesome.
And it was
early too.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of set the table, kind of put you on, I don't know if it put you on your heels, but it certainly serves notice that everyone got cut down. Yeah, no, it's a super fun deck, and it's something I want to continue exploring. And I think like that Tale of Tragedy, I wouldn't run 2 of them because I only have 1 Sith on the team, but that was an awesome card. Topps Lightsaber at 2 cost is awesome. I just need to find more money or kind of decrease, because like you just kind of outlined, I don't necessarily need 3 upgrades on each of these guys, but I need to be able to either focus my dice or just thwart whatever you're trying to do on the other side of the table. So,
and then I think the other shout out that deserves MVP of your deck is Conflicted. I don't know why it is that when you use Conflicted, it always works out so wonderfully to your benefit.
Yeah.
But you got it every time. It's perfect damage to kill off a character, perfect shields to save a character.
Yeah, I love it. I wish I had more. I have 2, and they're both in this deck. They'll be in any blue deck I run because they should be. And yeah, Conflicted is an MVP. Absolutely. Love it. I love, exactly that. When I needed shields, I rolled like Maul's Disrupt, which gave me shields, which was awesome. But and then one time I rolled it, and it does amazing things. Which is
you definitely killed one of my characters. I don't know who it was with a Conflicted, and that's amazing.
Feels good. For sure. So that's good. We are, you know what? This has been a lot of fun, but as I mentioned kind of before talking, I try to keep these kind of short, and so we're going to crack a pack. Props to my wife, because I have looked all around my local stores. I've been to 3 different Barnes and Nobles. I've been to my comic shop, and the comic shop closest to me, they didn't have any, and they're like, they explained it's chicken or the egg, right? If they get a box in, is that going to bring players in, or should the players come first and they'll order it? I think they would have ordered product for me, but I felt bad. Like, don't order a box just for me. But my wife was in a city about 30 minutes away from here, and she happened to be at a Barnes & Noble, and they found some. So she swooped up some for me. So unlike last time when I opened it across the galaxy, I'm going to open Convergence. Right before I do that, though, I have 2 things I want to give Greg. And I'm not setting a precedent for visitors here, but I owe Greg something from the Solidarity Tournament. Greg, here are your Jank It Up Fuzzball tokens. Most players, or some players, got some. These are made by Aegis Creative Company, so shout out to him. And I've touched these up myself, so they look all nice and pretty and white. But they're not the fancy set that I have that were custom made for me, but they look pretty good. And so those are yours for participating. Thank you. And then also, because I didn't know if I have Convergence, I bought an Across the Galaxy pack. And once my wife secured the Convergence, I cracked the pack and I pulled my 4th Super Battle Droid, which I'm just going to slide over to the table and give that to you, because I don't need 4. I'm actually planning a 3-wide Super Battle Droid deck, but you can't ever run 4. So there's another droid for you to play around with.
Well, this was super brave of you to give me this.
I know. It's super brave and super stupid. But honestly, not to get too into it, but the reason I'm able to create content for this, and the reason I'm able to play Destiny, is in part because you got into the game, right? If you weren't into it, I don't think I could sustain an interest trying to do TTS. And then my son, man, he's a champ. I love playing with him, but it's obviously it's a different game. No mitigation in those games, right? It's just hitting hard. So that's good. All right. So Greg, you know the drill. I'm assuming you've listened to the show. At least you say you do. So let's open this pack. Let's see what's inside of it. This is a Convergence pack. It's got Enfys Nest on the cover. Let's see what we got. And we'll talk about the cards. All right. So we got a yellow die on the table, and we're going to start in the back. And this is Skilled Tracker. So it is an upgrade ability. It is yellow character only. It is a villain card. It costs 1. Has a picture of Dengar on the front. It has die sides of 1 disrupt, 1 discard, 1 resource, special blank. The special says remove a character die. So there you go. It's an ability. Greg, what are your thoughts on Skilled Tracker?
I think it's pretty good for 1. I would if I had this, I would almost, me, yellow villain.
Yeah, you just mentioned Boba Fett, right? So I mean,
and even though I love my yellow 1 upgrades, this I think would have a good place in it, because 1 in 3 chance of a removal, and even though I do like aggressive decks, and I think in my last my yellow glass cannon deck, I loved a little discard too, and I got tired of being the recipient of discard, and I wanted to be the discarder.
There you go.
So I think it's worth throwing in a deck, especially one that you're just per the theme of the show.
Right. Yeah. I think also exactly. I think. It's in a Dengar deck that I put together. It's it's not a sexy card, but it has 2 specials. So it's like, way a long time ago, I played my Jawa Phasma deck, which was all special. And so that is a card for 1 cost. That'd be super effective in that deck as an upgrade. So I think it's interesting. It's yellow player only. So it's not, you can't slap it on Palpatine for that benefit. But that's fine. Okay. So let's go to the uncommon. The uncommon is Mind Extraction. So that is a 2-cost downgrade. Attached character loses all of its non-special abilities. The action is if you exhaust the attached character to discard this downgrade, only the attached character's controller can use this action. So this is interesting. It costs 2, but you could put that on Aphra, for instance, and she would lose the ability to get a droid out for cheaper, and she would lose the ability to draw a card upon indirect damage. You could put that on, basically it takes away any power actions, it takes away any non-special abilities. So, which is interesting, but it's kind of you pay 2, which is a pretty sizable cost, and then they can basically kick it off by simply exhausting the character. So put it on Vader. Vader cannot bitch to reroll, but then, are you willing to exhaust Vader? So you're losing a Vader's turn just to kick that off.
Yeah, well said is a good example.
Yeah.
And obviously I don't like this card.
Yeah, obviously not. So yeah, you're not going home with that one.
I can see it going on Aphra and being and tossing the table. So.
Yeah. It should, well, I don't know. 1 cost Aphra, you would just, 1 die Aphra, you could just say.
No,
okay,
I would. But your Vader is an excellent point. I think I would like to see all the different. Have we clarified all the rules behind this card? I
think it's pretty clear. Any kind of power action or action is shut off. Any kind of inherent ability that is not the based on the die special, that's done off. Now anything like I saw that anything with like a Marauder that allows you to play one hero card or 1 villain card, that is a ability that happens before the game begins, and that is not effective. So it suddenly doesn't cancel out those cards. But anything that's in game, it would shut down. So power actions, other actions on the card, or other conditions that happen because of the card would work.
So I think the best thing of this, though, is I don't recall the card because it was before my time in Destiny. But what is the card that you could exhaust someone's character?
Yeah, I don't know it either. But there's a card.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
was it more expensive than 2? I can't recall.
It probably was.
So I kind of feel like in comparison, this is... it's probably like a 50-50 chance that there's a character that's important enough that they want to get this downgrade off of it.
Right.
And that's... For 2, that's probably pretty good. So,
right. And certainly, like the new Palpatine, remember the Palpatine gets additional health based on whatever card abilities are on that. And although this doesn't remove those card abilities, it would remove the ability of getting extra health. So if for any reason you had more damage on, if you had 10 or more, and Palpatine wasn't dead, this was instantaneously kill Palpatine. So pretty interesting. All right, let's get through our 3 commons. The first one is Calculated Risk. It is 0 cost. It is a hero card. Reroll a die, then, if that die is showing a value of 2 or more, gain 1 resource. And it features Han Solo. The flavor text reads, I expect to be paid well. Han Solo. What do you think of that?
So this is in the Hours of Necessity? No,
this
sorry,
is
the Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's in the Obi-Wan.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yes, it is. Right. It is. Sorry, it's in the Obi-Wan one, and I think it is good. It is 0. So I think it is good. Probably not super aggressive, not something you'd have in there, but I think it's useful.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd include it, honestly, though.
I got it. Here's another Dengar card. So it features Dengar harassing someone. Prey Upon. It's a 1-cost neutral card. It's an event. Choose a character that has a downgrade on it and remove one of its character or upgrade dice. And the flavor text reads, don't move another inch by Dengar. So obviously it needs to be in a downgrade deck. But if you have that, and like I said, I have a Ventress Dengar deck, that could certainly slot into that. Last one is actually a pretty good one, a pretty hot one in the Destiny circle. It is a 1-cost hero upgrade ability. It is Lore Hunter. So if you like to play Mill, and not that you've made a Mill deck yet, Greg, but I know in the Magic days you've made some Mill decks.
Well, I want us to still be friends.
I know. Thank you for that. I think we have a gentleman's agreement not to play Mill. But the Lore Hunter is an upgrade. It's an ability. It's hero only. After you activate attached character, you may look at the top 2 cards of a player's deck, discard one of those cards, then add the other card to that player's hand. So you could use it to your own benefit if you're trying to search for a certain card, or you could use it if you're trying to mill out your opponent. You could use it to force them to discard a card, and then obviously it gives them a card, but it is putting them closer to your win condition by getting rid of a card. So not a super exciting pack. Skilled Tracker isn't like one of those cards that you're super excited about, but there's the Mind Extraction, the uncommon, I think is pretty useful, pretty exciting to work around. Greg, any final thoughts on your first inaugural and hopefully first of many Jank It Up Fuzzball?
Well, first of all, thank you for the gift. It was great. But it was exciting. Of course, I would love to just sit here and talk about the game for a long time with you. That's what we do, and that's typically why we even get out of finish playing so late, is because we're still talking about the game.
That's exactly
still talking about the decks, still second guessing ourselves, and then still complimenting each other.
It's so true. I love the Destiny community. I love watching some YouTube channels, seeing play and hearing players talk through it. And like you said, we were up till almost 1:00 the other night playing, but it was because we love the game. It's because we love the company, the conversation, some drinks were involved, and we're playing and we have a good time. I'm always excited to see what Greg brings to the table. I'm trying to build decks that I know can compete with Greg, and I'm getting there slowly and surely. Hopefully our next battle, however, will be cracking that Convergence box and doing some drafting. You have 2 copies of the Allies of Necessity. You at least said you would let me borrow one for the event. So that is nice. Hopefully, and then we could get into some of those cards and see what we got. I don't know how familiar with are the cards, but before we sign off, is there a character or a card that you're hoping to pull? Is there someone that interests you automatically?
It's so funny that you asked me this, because before I wanted to stop you and say, I really just want to tell you how excited I am about Count Dooku. I'm just so excited.
Well, okay, so you already have Elite Count Dooku with your two.
And he's coming. He's in a deck. The deck is 50% built, and
you just need some cards.
I'm still thinking about it, and the Convergence cards that would go along with it are even better. I'm excited. I'm very excited about him.
Is it going to be Dooku Kylo? Yeah. Okay. I'll just let Greg has a very wry smile across his face.
But this, of course, is unfortunate, because this means that Brian is going to make rainbow decks to prevent Kylo from doing his thing.
Yeah, I got to do something. Maybe I'll do that. Well, hey, Greg, this has been super fun on a weeknight. Thanks for coming over. Super great. Hey, if you're listening, what do you think? We got Greg in here. It's not just my voice, not just my monologues going on. It was great to have a back and forth, and just want to thank him for doing that. Hey, go out there and have some fun with Destiny. Right? It's a game. We play, or at least I play casually, sometimes casually competitively, but, go have some fun with it. So next time you're out, I do encourage you, as always, to play some jank, roll some dice, and have some fun. We'll catch up soon. Thanks. Woohoo! What do you think?
That's good. I think there's some solid places for edit.